Hello everyone and welcome back to Mysterious Murmurs. I know many of you use these videos to fall asleep, so before you drift off I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this video. Story name: Ink Drips from the Sky. The first drop fell on a Sunday. A single black drop, thick and slow, landing on the sidewalk outside Miller's diner. No one noticed at first. Inside the diner, regulars were nursing their morning coffee, flipping through newspapers, chewing on buttered toast. The radio was playing an old Johnny Cash song, the kind that made people hum without thinking. Outside, though, on the cracked pavement, just beside the faded white line of a parking space, the ink was spreading. It didn't dry. It didn't evaporate. It just moved. By noon, the sky was leaking. Fat, oily black drops spattered onto windshields, onto rooftops, onto outstretched hands. It wasn't rain. It was too thick, too slow, curling into itself like liquid shadow. Sheriff Dale Turner got the first call around 12:30. "Looks like some kinda chemical spill," came the voice on the line. Old Jim Hardwick, who ran the hardware store. "It's comin' from the sky, Sheriff. You ever seen rain that don't dry?" Dale sighed and pinched the bridge of his nose. It was a Sunday, for Christ's sake. He wasn't in the mood for town gossip disguised as emergencies. "Jim, are you drinking again?" "Dale, I swear to you." The phone cut out. Not static. Not a dropped signal. Just gone. Dead air. Dale frowned. He hung up, then dialed back. No ring. No nothing. Drip. Something landed on his desk. Right in front of him. A single, black drop. Thick, slow. Dale's breath hitched. He looked up. The ceiling was dry. The ink hadn't fallen from anywhere. It had just appeared. And outside his window, the sky was getting darker. Not like a storm. Like something was spreading. Dale Turner wasn't the kind of man to scare easy. He'd been the sheriff of Briar Hollow for 26 years. He'd seen floods, fires, a tornado that nearly wiped the town off the map back in '98. He'd handled murder cases, missing kids, even that time a drifter came through town and started burying cats in folks' backyards like some kind of twisted art project. But this was different. The ink sat there on his desk, a perfect, round droplet that didn't spread, didn't soak into the wood. It just sat there, rippling slightly, as if something inside it was moving. He grabbed a pen from the cup beside him and hesitated. His gut told him not to touch it, but his brain, his logical, rational, been on the job long to believe in boogeyman brain, said, "It's just a stain." He poked it. The pen sank. Not into liquid. Into nothing. It disappeared, like he'd dipped it into a hole in the desk. The second he pulled back, the pen came with it, but something was wrong. The plastic casing was now a deep, unnatural black, as if the ink had swallowed its color. His hand shook. Drip. Another drop hit the desk. Dale stood up so fast his chair tipped backward. He grabbed his radio. "This is Turner to dispatch. Anyone reading me?" Silence. He tried again. "Marge? You there?" More silence. A sound. A low, wet whisper. Not static. Not a voice he recognized. Just a noise that felt wrong. Like something breathing just a little too close to his ear. Then the radio died. Dale swallowed. He needed to get out of the office. Outside, the sky was shifting. The clouds had taken on a deep blue-black color, thick and rolling, as if something was churning beneath them. The sun should have been high in the sky, but everything looked dimmer. And the ink was still falling. Not fast, not like rain, but slow and deliberate, thick beads that dripped from the sky and landed on the ground without a sound. People were standing in the streets, looking up, staring. Maggie Wilkes, who ran the bakery. Old man Grayson, who never left his porch unless it was to shout about his goddamn roses. Mrs. Lewinsky, the school librarian, still wearing her reading glasses. Their faces were blank, empty. Their eyes reflected the sky like two pools of black glass. Dale's stomach curdled. Something was happening to them. And then he saw Tommy Aldrich. The kid was standing right in the middle of Main Street, arms outstretched, palms up, catching the ink like a child waiting for snowflakes. His hands were completely black. The ink had seeped into his skin, twisting up his arms like roots. And he was smiling. Dale moved without thinking. He ran toward the boy, his boots slapping against the pavement. "Tommy," he shouted, "get inside." Now, the kid didn't respond. Just stood there, letting the ink soak into him. Dale grabbed him by the shoulders and shook him hard. "Tommy, listen to me. What the hell are you doing?" The boy's head tilted, his smile widening just a little too far. When he spoke, his voice was wrong. Not his own. Not even human. "It's waking up." Dale's blood turned to ice. Then Tommy blinked. The blackness in his eyes disappeared like someone flipping a switch. His smile vanished, and he sucked in a shuddering breath, like a drowning man coming up for air. "A sheriff?" His voice was small, confused. Dale gripped his arms. "You okay, son?" Tommy looked down at his hands. His blackened hands. His mouth opened, maybe to scream, maybe to cry, but before a sound could escape, he started shaking. Not shivering. Not like someone cold. Like a puppet with its strings being yanked. His limbs jerked unnaturally, his head snapping back. His mouth opened too wide, like something inside him was trying to crawl out. And then, the sky split open. A massive tear formed above the town, stretching from one end of the horizon to the other, spilling black ink in heavy, endless sheets. It didn't fall like rain anymore. It poured. Dale dragged Tommy toward the sidewalk, shielding the boy with his own body as the inky flood engulfed the streets. People screamed. Cars stalled. The street lights flickered and died. And above them all, something moved inside the ink. Something big. Something with too many eyes. Dale could hear it whispering. Hundreds of voices. Thousands. All speaking at once. "It's awake. It's here. And it's hungry." The ink flooded the town within minutes. Dale fought his way through it, dragging Tommy toward the diner, shoving through the doors just as the streets disappeared under an ocean of black. They slammed the doors shut. Inside, a handful of townsfolk had already taken shelter. Maggie, Grayson, a few kids Dale didn't recognize. Their faces were pale, their bodies shaking. No one spoke. Outside the windows, shadows moved. Not people. Not animals. Something else. Something born from the ink. Tommy pressed against Dale's side, his breath coming fast and ragged. His hands were still black. "Sheriff," he whispered. "It's in me." Dale looked down at him. The ink wasn't fading. And in the dim light of the diner, Tommy's shadow wasn't moving right. The ink had come from the sky. Now it was crawling inside them. And Dale had a feeling that by morning, no one in Briar Hollow would be human anymore. The ink didn't stop. It clung to the windows, sliding down the glass in thick, living streaks. The diner lights flickered, buzzing like dying fireflies. The air smelled burnt, like scorched paper, and every breath felt heavy, like they were inhaling something thick, something wrong. No one spoke. Not Maggie Wilkes, who usually couldn't keep her mouth shut about town gossip. Not Grayson, who looked like he wanted to say something but was too afraid to move his lips. Not the two kids huddled together in the corner, gripping each other like if they let go, the ink would take them too. Outside, the shadows moved. Not just moved, shifted, like they were listening. Dale had seen bad storms before. The kind that made folks board up their windows and hunker down in basements. But this wasn't a storm. This was something worse. Tommy wasn't right. The kid sat in the booth beside him, shoulders hunched, eyes wide and staring. His hands were still black up to the wrists, the ink stitched into his skin like veins. Every few minutes, his body gave a small, unnatural jerk, like something inside him was testing the strings. Dale had seen enough people go into shock to know that wasn't what this was. This was something else. Something inside Tommy was watching them. "Sheriff," Maggie finally whispered. "What the hell is happening?" Dale shook his head. He didn't have an answer. The ink outside wasn't just covering the town anymore. It was rising. Like floodwater, it crawled up telephone poles, swallowed cars whole, slid over rooftops. Briar Hollow was sinking into blackness. And somewhere beneath it all, Dale could hear it. A heartbeat. Slow, steady. The kind of deep, ancient thrum that didn't belong to something human. Tommy flinched, his whole body stiffening. "I hear it too," he whispered. His voice didn't sound like his anymore. It had a second layer beneath it, something deeper, something wet. Maggie let out a strangled sound. Grayson crossed himself. And then the ink spoke. Not with words. Not exactly. But in a voice too big to come from any mouth, too old to have a name. It whispered through the diner walls, curled into their ears, pressed against their skulls like something trying to squeeze its way inside. "Let us in," Maggie screamed. Grayson collapsed to his knees, his fingers clawing at his ears. The two kids in the corner sobbed. Tommy smiled. A small, knowing smile, like he understood something the rest of them didn't. And then he stood up. His hands twitched. His fingers stretched. And he turned to Dale with eyes that weren't his anymore. "They're already inside." Dale grabbed his gun. But he knew it wouldn't help. Because the ink wasn't just outside the diner anymore. It was in the walls. In their lungs. And as the darkness swallowed Briar Hollow whole, Dale finally understood. They had never been alone. And they never would be again. If you've enjoyed this journey into the unknown, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments below. Have a tale of your own or a legend you'd like us to explore? Let us know. You might just hear it next. Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a story. Because here the darkness is always waiting just for you.